The Maximum Happiness and Wellbeing course, Part 2, Session 11, The Power of the Brain. Understand in simple terms how your wonderful brain is constructed and can be made to work for you, how your every thought leaves an impression, and how changing your thoughts will change your experiences of happiness. Discover what parts of the brain impact your emotional state of happiness. The power of your brain. No course on happiness, fulfillment and well-being would be complete without reference to the engine that can transport you to your destination, your extraordinary brain. My favourite analogy is likening it to a computer. If your brain is the hardware, your mind is the software. Neuroscience is the study of the brain. Barely a week goes by without some remarkable discovery about the brain, its capacity and capabilities. You are your brain. Everything that makes you and all your experiences of the world are somehow conjured up by 1.4 kilograms of grey matter inside your skull. Neuroscience has advanced so much that we now understand its structures and inner workings and how it can give rise to perceptions, consciousness, emotions, memories, intelligence, sleep and so much more. If you've ever wondered what's happening inside your head, this session will take you on a journey of your amazing brain. You'll discover the evolution and anatomy of the brain and learn how we can peer inside it, not literally, to understand how it works. So come with us on a layman's tour inside the most complicated and remarkable object in the known universe, your brain. As our happiness is so intrinsically linked to the thoughts that occupy our mind, it's useful to discover in simple terms how thoughts work, how they're processed within our brain, and how we can control their use to our advantage. The remainder of the session summarises a lifetime of fascination with the brain, how our thoughts are processed, and how the quality of our thoughts affects our emotions, behaviours, and physical, mental, and spiritual states. Before we start on the exciting detail, here are a few fascinating trivial facts about the brain. Size doesn't necessarily matter. An average male brain weighs around 1400 grams. Einstein's brain at 1230 grams was slightly below average. Whatever made him a genius, it certainly wasn't a larger than average brain. Pain is perceived in the brain, but it contains no pain receptors. This is how some kinds of brain surgery can be done while the patient is awake. The blood vessels and membranes around the brain have pain receptors, so we get headaches. Up to 250,000 new cells form every minute in the womb, making 1.8 million new connections per second. About half of these will later be lost, leaving only those reinforced by use. If you unravelled the human cerebral cortex, it would measure 2,500 centimetres squared, about the same size as an A2 sheet of paper. The average person spends 25 years, around a third of the average lifespan, asleep. The idea that we use only 10% of our brains is a myth. We use all of it, but not at once. Our nerve impulses can travel faster than 100 miles per second. The body's blood supply is pumped through the brain every 7 minutes. All human embryos start life with female brains. Extra hormones are needed to create a male. The human brain contains about 86 billion neurons. Up to 60% of addiction risk stems from genetic factors. Newborn babies can only see black, white and red. Unlike our other senses, smell bypasses the thalamus and goes straight to the limbic system. Emotions and memories are processed and stored here, especially in the amygdala, explaining why smells trigger more memories. An average adult has between 2,000 and 8,000 taste buds. The skin is the body's biggest organ and the largest sensory organ. Women feel pain more intensely than men, because they have more nerve receptors in their bodies. Brain evolution. If you refer to the course notes, you'll see a diagram of the brain as it evolved, showing the reptilian brain, which deals with our instincts, the mammalian brain, which deals with emotion and feeling, and the neocortex, the later produced part of the brain, which deals with cognition, language, sensory perception and spatial reasoning. In fact, you have 3 brains. It may surprise you to learn that you have 3 brains, each having evolved independently. At the base of your skull is what's known as the primitive reptilian brain. This part of your brain keeps you breathing and your heart beating. It controls some of your more basic reactions like fighting or taking flight in the face of danger. It also controls your sense of territory, explaining the discomfort you may experience when someone invades the personal space of your comfort zone. Next to evolve is your middle, mammalian brain, possessed by all mammals. Recent research has shown how important this brain is to learning. The middle brain controls your hormones, your immune system, your sexuality, your emotions, and an important part of your long-term memory. It's no coincidence that the middle brain controls both emotions and long-term memory. When something involves strong emotions, it's usually well remembered. Can you remember your first kiss with someone special, or where you were when you heard that someone significant had died? It also reinforces that enjoyment and fun are important parts of learning, involving, as they do, so many positive emotions. To try and imagine the evolution of the brain, make a fist with your left hand to picture the 3 brain image. Now, wrap your right hand over the top of this fist. Your left wrist represents your primitive brain. Your left fist is your middle brain, and your right hand wrapped over it is your new 3rd brain, the thinking grey matter of the neocortex. Your 3rd brain is quite remarkable. This brain is known as grey matter and has all the capacity you will ever need to learn and remember anything you want. To get your brain capacity into perspective, consider this. As it grows in the womb, a 12-week human embryo develops 2,000 brain cells a second. An adult bee, which can do some pretty sophisticated stuff like building a honeycomb and calculating distance and direction to signal the location of pollen to its companions, has a total of 7,000 brain cells. That's the number of brain cells a human embryo grows in about 3 seconds. The incredible capacity of the human brain has only recently been realised. You have about 100 billion brain cells, which is just impossible to visualise. It's 20 times the entire population of the world. We are what we think. Research supports the view that what we experience in the form of a thought has a physical impact upon our brain. A brain cell looks like a small octopus, as in the diagram that appears in the course notes. The cell is in the centre, with tiny threads that branch out. Each time something reaches one of your senses, whether it's sight, sound, touch, smell or thought, it creates a thought or impression that travels out from a brain cell along one of the little branch-like threads, which are called dendrites, which derives from the Greek meaning branch. Each thought contains electrical energy that creates a physical pathway along a dendrite, a neural pathway, much like the groove of an old long playing vinyl record, for those of you old enough to remember what they were. The record player needle is like the thought. The groove is like the dendrite or the neural pathway. Once a new thought creates a new pathway or dendrite, it will always use the same dendrite whenever that thought is repeated. If a thought or belief is repeated enough, the pathway is well used. The dendrite enlarges. If it's unused, the dendrite withers. This explains the tendency to have the same negative and positive thoughts repeatedly. The thoughts of your thinking mind flow down the neural pathways of least resistance, the biggest dendrites operating like motorways. It becomes clear then that because 70% of our thoughts are negative through conditioning, as we've discussed previously, we could create through these motorways easy routes where negative thoughts can fly around the brain and influence our behaviour. However, the good news is that any negative neural pathways you may have created with repeated negative thoughts can be replaced by positive ones, creating fresh positive pathways. As each separate thought travels down its dendrite, the positive dendrites can be encouraged to thicken. Eliminating negative thoughts allows a negative dendrite to wither from misuse. The result is that once these initial changes have been achieved, it becomes easier to live life with a positive outlook. Every thought leaves a trace in the memory area of your brain. What better incentive is there to clean up our self-talk and our critical inner dialogue, leaving no room for limiting beliefs, and maximise the likelihood of achieving the happy and fulfilled life we all seek through our thoughts, beliefs and behaviour? Refer to the Session 11 ebook for details of the brain functions in greater detail. We're going to talk about something now called neuroplasticity. And the medical definition of neuroplasticity is it's the brain's ability to reorganise itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. Neuroplasticity allows the neurons or the nerve cells in the brain to compensate for injury and disease and to adjust their activities in response to new situations or to changes in their environment. This is the technical terminology for how you can change thoughts by changing the neural pathways in your mind. This is something called neuroplasticity. To reiterate then, neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganise by forming new neural connections. Neuroplasticity allows the brain's neurons to compensate for injury and disease and adjust their activities in response to new situations or environmental changes. Not so long ago, scientists believed that the brain didn't change after childhood and that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent events, occurring only in the last couple of decades, now tell us this isn't true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It's adaptable like plastic. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. So how does this neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic connected power grid, billions of pathways or roads light up whenever you think, feel or do something. Some of these roads are well travelled. These are our habits, established ways of thinking, feeling and doing. Whenever we think, feel and do something in certain ways, practice a particular task or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this pathway and it becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Let's say we think about something differently, learn a new task or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road or a new neural pathway. If we keep travelling that new road, our brains increasingly use this pathway, and this new way of thinking or feeling becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and less, weakens and eventually withers. The good news is that we can learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you've ever changed an old habit or thought about something or thinking about something differently, you've created a new pathway in your brain and experienced new plasticity firsthand. With repeated and direct attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain. How men's and women's brains are different. There is a real difference in brain design. Women tend to have more balanced brains, using skills and talents in both of the hemispheres, often simultaneously, explaining the female attribute of multitasking. Conversely, men tend to have more specialised brains, requiring a specific focus on skills and talents in one of the hemispheres at a time. Women tend to have talents distributed over larger areas. Men tend to have language concentrated in the left brain and may lose all language ability with a damaged left brain. In contrast, women have language talents spread over both hemispheres. The neural maps illustrated in the course notes illustrate the frequent crossover between hemispheres experienced by women and the single hemisphere activity of men. Continuing with the theme of how men's and women's brains are different, women talk, men grunt. Women have a reputation for talking because on average more of the female brain is devoted to language. In contrast, the right brains of men tend to be more like their animal ancestors, with skills useful for hunting and warfare. Women use their strong language and generalist skills to talk in the kitchen, prepare food and manage the party, while the pack of men in the living room grunt and scream right-brained animal sounds as they watch someone score a goal on TV sports. The men will also treat the TV remote like a spear, pointing it at the TV, searching for prey or programs, like deer hiding in the trees and always looking for something better on the next mountain or channel. Early humans developed some unusual traits for good reasons. As the jungles of East Africa changed to grasslands during a long drying spell, jungle apes designed for trees were disadvantaged in catching food. Evolution favoured walking upright, which allowed more use of hands and arms to use tools. Limited language skills. A hunter didn't need to progress beyond grunts, using shrugs to silently communicate to fellow hunters tracking a prey. Risk-taking. Men had to take dangerous risks when hunting. The fear centre in the brain decreased. This remains more common in men than in women. Tribalism. The tribe is highly important for any social animal, especially to men defending a family or village. War. War is a spin-off of hunting, skills and tribalism. War is like a hunt because it brings home valuables like loot, land, women or slaves. The thrills and risks of danger of war were similar to attacking a mammoth or a bear. Bragging. Men would naturally brag to the world about their hunting skills. Bragging was good in hunting because brave men brought back more food for their families. Modern men brag about owning the best car or house, boat, TV set or computer. Non-sympathetic towards weakness. The caveman brains would have had little encouragement to develop sympathy for the weak human. A weak or cowardly fellow hunter could lead to failure and starvation. A weak prey would be too easy to kill and not allow bragging about strength or bravery. He works hard to make a lot of money because he knows that his wife wants a new house, dress, jewellery, trip furniture, kitchen, remodelling, etc. Modern men who act differently, more like a cave woman with feminine traits, would not have survived well in the caveman world. Cave women evolved brains and bodies for talking and nurturing in a family. The nurturing instinct. Most mammal babies grow fast and become independent within a year. Baby horses can walk within minutes, run within hours, and follow the herd within a day. The important point is that by next Mother's Day, most female mammals will give last year's baby a cold shoulder, kick him out of the nest, and give birth to the next little one. As humans evolved larger brains, female humans had a problem. The larger brain meant larger heads and more labour pains. Early cave women began minimising labour pains by having babies more prematurely, with smaller heads and underdeveloped brains. Too premature, the baby would die. Not premature enough, and the mother would die. 9 months was the compromise agreement after 1 million years or so of contract negotiations. Body talents. Women needed wide hips for birth to raise children with larger heads. Cave women also evolved a shoulder design that made it natural to carry a baby while nursing, but their shoulders and arms were not as good for throwing spears. Cavemen idolised women who would produce lots of children, so they idolised wide hips and breasts. Also, if their wives were fat, That told their neighbours the man was a good hunter. The earliest human figurines are called fat Venuses. Roman statues of beautiful women showed them as plump, showing them to be from a rich class with a rich husband. Management talents. Premature birth meant mom had to become domestic and good at managing a cave. Even at 9 months, the baby has so much growing to do before it can be kicked out of the nest that mom has to say no to going on the husband's business trip of mammoth hunting. Mom has another baby next season along with other children still hanging around the nest until they get married off. With many things happening in the cave, including cooking the food, disciplining or feeding the children, caring for the old people, talking with all of the people and sewing up leather clothes, women developed management talents to juggle the many activities and people. Language talents. Many family members in a cave led to lots of interaction, so women developed good language skills to manage the people and teach ideas to the young children. Grandmothers who told stories to their grandchildren about ancestors, legends, history and morality are main features of most cultures. A woman's touch in the home means that she has taken care of many intuitive details, especially those related to human relationships, and it made the house feel like a home, a pleasant cave for her family to live in. You know a woman lives here when you see the following feel-good aspects. Family pictures on the walls. Things are generally neat and clean and sanitary. The curtains on the windows match and are nicely done. The furnishings and decorations are probably a similar style. There are fresh flowers, not plastic, on the table. The music is background music so it doesn't interfere with the conversation, and food is to be served attractively on the dining table. To conclude this section on the power of the brain, let's dispel some myths about the creativity and the left brain, right brain. Myth number 1. Women are more right-brained. Reality. Women on average tend to be more left-brained than men. A commonly voiced myth, usually spoken or written by women in books for women, is that women are more right-brained than men. This is wrong. The evidence from strokes and injuries shows that women have more language development over more areas of the brain. Because language is a left brain speciality, women tend to be more left brain than men on average. Compared to the average male, women tend to have more left brain talents, such as talking more intelligently and logically, keeping track of schedules, organising cabinets sequentially, and writing eloquently. Girls in school also tend to excel at language skills and history with sequential thinking. Reality. Men on average tend to be right-brained. For example, the right brain spatial area is important to animals for finding food and for humans operating equipment, designing bridges, fixing car engines and building houses. Men tend to be better drivers in high-speed situations like racing. Men are often very impulsive rather than logical, and their language is in grunts rather than perfect grammar. Part of the women are right brain myth includes the myth that left brain men are more militaristic and thus cause wars. Yes, men cause almost all wars and military operations, but it's because war is mostly a caveman and right brain operation. Planning, tool use, hunting skills, tribalism and visual spatial with little sympathy for weakness, flying aeroplanes, aiming guns, deciding who is the enemy, establishing territory, sneaking round in the woods and so on. Myth number 2. Women have a strong right brain because of their strong emotions. Reality. Emotions are not exclusive to women. The temporal lobe is the main location of memories. Language sounds and words on the left side. Music sounds and images live on the right side. The front of the temporal lobes combines emotions and memories. As someone said, emotions tell us how important our memories are. With strong left brain language abilities, women tend to attach strong emotional attachments to language. This makes them very aware of emotional innuendos and meanings in what people say. Myth number 3. Women are more creative. Reality. Women will tend to be more creative in their instinctual talent areas such as language, people and relationships. Creativity itself has nothing to do with male versus female. It has to do with what talents or parts of the cortex are most wired to the creative yes patch in the frontal lobe. If there are strong connections between the creative frontal lobe and music sounds, then the person will tend to be strong at imagining new patterns of music sounds and have a career as a composer. However, because women tend to have stronger left brain language development, they will naturally tend to have stronger creative connections to language and people's talents. Creative planning for events such as parties and conventions, business operations, non-profit organisations, organising people in any situation, and managerial skills. If the difference between the male and the female brain is of interest to you, session 20 is the power of love, which looks at how the male and female brain process that wonderful emotion and how different they are, how their brains operate differently, specifically with regard to love in the brain. In that session, Dr. Helen Fisher explains the difference between male and female emotions in the brain with regard to love, how men and women process love in the brain differently. If you're interested in why men and women think differently, in particular with regard to emotions and love, session 20 shouldn't be missed.